Hi, my name is Dave. Today we're going to look at a very commonplace department store type telescope. The one in particular that I'm thinking of is a Jason, but these come in all sorts of different varieties. Got three Jasons here. I've got a Tasco, I've got one with a Tanzutsu name on it, but you can see all kinds of different brands. They're all 76 millimeters in aperture, 3 inches in aperture, and they're Jones bird kind of a telescope. I'll explain more about what that means here in a minute. And you'll see them in lots of different colors, and most interestingly, in lots of different kinds of mounts. The most common one is this little guy here. It's a short one, short focal length, 480 millimeter focal length. And this is all over the place. You'll see these everywhere. There are 3 of them on eBay on any particular day for sale for outrageous inflated prices. But some of these are much more rare. Some of these are quite exotic and you won't see them anywhere. They're highly, in my opinion, highly collectible for that reason. So stay tuned and I hope you enjoy. Let's take a look at these 3 scopes for starters. On the far right here we have the Jason. This has a focal length of 480 millimeters. Notice that the finder is attached permanently here. The mount is a fork with a slight tilt to it, like that. This is branded Tanzutsu, and the focal length is 600 millimeters. This has a removable finder with a little dovetail. The finder comes off like that. It's on an Altaz mount with a straight up and down fork arm, but notice those are setting circles there. Let's keep that in mind. Also notice the label on this thing. It's labeled TOA. Now here's a Jason, and the focal length here is 750 millimeters. Got a fairly fancy and complicated slow motion right ascension and declination. I'll show you that in more detail. It's got an inclined but non-equatorial mount. This has the reflex type finder. So I can show you this. You flip this up and down. There's a little mirror prism that drops down in there and catches some light so you can find things. Okay, let's take a closer look at this is the Tasco 132T, 600 millimeters. I've seen Jasons that are the same scope. Oddly enough, this one on the label says made in China. The others say made in Japan, if they say anything at all. The Tasco has the removable finder, like the other Jason. This mount, this is a true equatorial mount. And that's the attitude. This is that's pointed at Polaris there. So that sets the latitude for you. A couple of screws here to adjust that. And the whole thing, I'll show you that in more detail. This Jason has the reflex finder, longer focal length, 750. Look at this equatorial mount, will you? Complicated. Wait till you see the operation of this deal. I'm going to give you a close-up look at this Altaz mount here. That's a lock. There's slow motion. You only have a limited amount of slow motion. You've got a kind of a tangent drive, azimuth. For altitude, it's got one of the strangest systems I've ever seen. This is weird. And I'm sure you can't hear it, but there's a series of little detents in there. It wants to stop at these various locations. You stop it somewhere. Let's stop it somewhere sort of realistic, like up here maybe. So let's stop it here, lock it down there, and then, and this is bent here. It's not meant to be that way. I'm afraid to straighten it out. If I straighten it out, I'll break it, and then I'll have to make a new one on my lathe. So what's going on there is the weirdest thing. It's got these little detents there. It's kind of spring-loaded. How's that for strange? Weirdest thing I've ever seen. Now, this mount is a true equatorial, although it doesn't have slow motions. Show you how this works. There's a couple of screws here. This thing, you loosen this up, and now you can adjust the latitude. So you adjust the latitude here, latitude there, etc., etc. On the back, there's even a little latitude pointer. Give you precise location, precise latitude adjustment. When you tighten things down, you're good to go. And it's got setting circles. I'm not saying they're good. Matter of fact, I'm very much not saying they're good. There's setting circles right here, so you can adjust those, calibrate the whole thing, just like, well, like the real deal. Okay, here, have a look at this. This is a single arm equatorial mount. And you can adjust for latitude right there. It's got a little scale. This counterweight helps you to do that. Great big clamping arm on it. So you set your latitude there. You have slow motion here. I have to set the lock over here. Slow motion over there. Take this around and show you. That thing, it tends to be a little bit sort of nose heavy. This is the lock declination. It's very inconveniently placed here. Really. And you have to crank it down. The weight of this finder system probably weighs as much as the whole scope. So it really tends to make this nose heavy. Then you have slow motion like this, if I've got it locked down well enough. And as I said before, the slow motion here is really, really fine. The arm here is so long that it makes it almost useless, really. It's very, very slow motion. Interesting, isn't it? You won't see many of these. These have got to be hyper rare. I want to point something out about this Tanzutsu. And I don't think it's unique to Tanzutsu. That brand is like they're all coming from the same factory. So there's a Jason with the same exact arrangement. It's got setting circles here, right? Ascension here, declination there. So why would they do that? Well, this scope can be taken off these legs, of course, and screwed onto a tripod. Let me show you what that looks like. I've now taken the legs off of the mount and put it on a regular. It's actually it has to be a pretty good substantial tripod for this to work. Now you can tilt it one way or the other. Put it all the way down there if you want. If you have enough tripod to do that. It takes a decent tripod. Now you've got a real equatorially mounted telescope. These friction clutches, by the way, are pretty bad. I mean, they grab and then you can't adjust them very well. Not only can you put this on a tripod and make it an equatorial, you can rearrange the legs a little bit. How's that for an equatorial mount? And of course you can change the latitude here by like so. This only gives you a latitude adjustment that's capable of about 35 to 50 degrees or so, something like that. If you want to go further south, you have to use this supplementary leg and a supplementary counterweight. Watch this. Now you can go as far south, well, pretty far south. I'm not sure how far you can go. This extends your range from latitudes maybe 50, 55 degrees north on down to maybe 30, maybe 25, 30 degrees south, something like that. Now, I'm going to tell you the truth about this. This whole configuration here is not original to this scope. When I bought this, it had this configuration, but it didn't have a long enough arm here, or it had too long of an arm there, so I supplemented that a little bit. Basically, this is all made up. It's all fictional. Really won't find a commercial product that does that, I don't think. It's cute though, isn't it? So what about the performance of these scopes? These scopes are Jonesburg telescopes, which means that they have a tiny little lens inside the focuser. They're not actually Newtonians, although some of them are labeled as Newtonians. And the little lens in the focuser does some magic, supposed to do some magic. First of all, you can make a very inexpensive telescope by using a spherical primary, very cheap to make, and a couple of little cheap spherical lenses in the focuser. You can make it very compact, and the manufacturers just simply, this is like catnip to them. They just love it. It's cheap, you can make it, and it might work and it might not. And in these cases, they don't work. There's one of these out of the 5, one of these that is barely functional, and I bet you can't guess which one by looking. As a matter of fact, it's the cheapest one I bought. I bought it on Goodwill for 20 bucks, and it's this one. And it actually has, by some circumstance, they put it together right in the factory, and everything's pretty close, and you can tweak it in a little bit, and it actually delivers a fairly usable image. The other scopes, you can tell that Jupiter has moons, and that's about it. With this one, you can actually see belts and bands, not really clearly, but you can make out that it has belts and bands. So it's a better, almost functional telescope. I would say marginally functional telescope. Let me show you something else though. This is a Vixen. It's called the Halley Multi-80 RS telescope, something like that. Complicated name. Anyway, it's another Jonesburg telescope. Let me show you a close-up of this one. First of all, the Vixen is on a very functional mount. This mount, you can adjust it like so, and it has very usable slow motions, much better than any of the little Jasons. So this is a much better mount. The finder is useless, as is that one. You can replace that easily enough though. The main thing about this telescope is that it's got an adjustable primary mirror. You see the screws here? Those are push-pulls. And on this one, there ain't no such thing. It's got nothing back there to adjust the primary mirror. So you can adjust the primary mirror here, and you can adjust the, let me show you here. There are adjustment screws for the secondary, very much like this one. This is a bit better though, because you can reach in there and actually turn that secondary. One of the frustrations with this scope is that you've got 3 push-pull, but you can't rotate the secondary. And in one of them at least, I was unable to get the thing collimated because I couldn't reach in there and rotate that. This optical window is purely decoration. I'm pretty sure because it's cheap to make them that way. The Vixen has a traditional spider, which is much better, makes it possible for you to adjust that. So you have many more degrees of freedom for adjusting this, and this is a functional telescope. This one actually works. These I would consider to be no better than toys, really. They're nice decorations, and some people like to collect them. I actually love the way they look, sitting on a mantle or something. Great looking little telescopes, but they're not functional. They're not useful telescopes. This one is a usable telescope. I hope you've enjoyed having a look at the Jason Comet Chaser telescope. Thank you very much for watching.